Welcome to On the Beat, where we bring you a different Buffalo Bills beat reporter every week, exclusively on the Overreaction Sports Network.
Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into On the Beat on the Overreaction Sports Network. My name is Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired, alongside my Buffalo Bills offensive lineman, utility knife, Swiss Army knife, Jerry Ostrowski. He is. You can find him on Twitter at Ostrowski_Big O. We are so glad that you are with us. Please like, please subscribe, whatever platform you are consuming this podcast on. Please do us a favor and like it. Please subscribe. And if you happen to miss any of our live content on YouTube, please know that you can find it in podcast form on any podcast platform that you choose. Just search Overreaction Buff or Overreaction Buffalo. You'll get all of our content. But without any further ado, excited to have one of my very good friends from Wufu Sports 1080, MUKI HAWKINS, joining the program tonight to talk about, MUKI, hundreds of millions of Americans around the country are waiting for change tonight. And it's mostly NFL fans, and I don't know that we got a whole lot of it. But MUKI, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Joe. I can't complain. Bills are 7-2. My high school team is, we got a good game going on this week in the semifinals and the playoffs. And then
nice.
My youth football team, is preparing for national play in Florida and Texas. So Kansas for a little bit, but my favorite time of year.
You're always burning the candle at both ends. Jerry, how are you doing? Oh, sorry.
I'm
Jerry,
doing good, man. MUKI, where are you playing in Texas?
Frisco.
Okay.
Yeah, Frisco. We are the U.S. Army Bowl. The modified championship. So I'll be taking 7th grade team down, a bunch of 12-year-old kids. Go and compete, represent the state. I'm the all-star director for New York State for U.S. Army Bowl. So I'll do that. And we compete in Florida as well in United Youth Football Championships, which I'm the host, but I'm still going to take my team down and get some work, give us a little quick trial run before modified championships in Texas.
Nice.
Outstanding.
Nice. I like it. So getting around to the Buffalo Bills, there's a lot of stuff going on, not only this week, but today, and a lot of stuff maybe that didn't necessarily happen. Want to get into that, want to get into just maybe some speculation, want to get into some things that the Buffalo Bills, some moves, a move at least that they did today, as well as some injury stuff, kind of pick your brain a little bit, see what you want to ask or what you're looking to ask the guys tomorrow during the pressers. But I think it starts for me with just Mike Edwards. I put a tweet out today. The Bills released, for those of you that don't know, the Bills released safety Mike Edwards today. He asked to be released. The Bills granted that release. The Bills are not what I think any of us would consider heavy or thick at safety. It's odd to me that he's never fit in. I don't know that I live in a space, and maybe MUKI, you see practice, I don't know that I live in a space where I'm ready to say that Mike Edwards is not as good as DeMar Hamlin or potentially Taylor Rapp, but those guys are starting over Mike. He just couldn't break the starting lineup, and now he's gone from this team. It never really fit in. What can you let us know, clue us in? What can you tell the Mafia just about that situation?
I mean, it's just you come in, yeah, you got a good resume. You played on Super Bowl teams in Tampa Bay and Kansas City. You come in and you're hurt. It's a next man up type of deal. And if those guys are getting caught up and they're developing and they're healthy, and they're going to stick with those guys. They're not going to just stop their development process, because I guess you're healthy. So you got to get caught up to speed on how things are going from a schematic standpoint. And, do you have any continuity with the guys out there?
Would you say, MUKI, it was basically a trust issue? McDermott didn't trust him, or didn't trust that he was going to A, stay healthy, or B, know what he was doing when he was on the field, so they decided to move on?
Well, yeah, we're at this point. I mean, the safety valve was Cole Bishop, right? So let's start the process with our rookie, throw him in the fire real quick and see how he goes. If he could sustain that and get him to do what we need him to do per these snaps, because he's not getting a lot of snaps, then we're cool with that. So I guess that, hey, you bring in guys just in case. So, in this case, Mike Edwards, is pretty much the, I guess the guinea pig in that reference. So it was okay for the Bills to go ahead and let him go. He hasn't played in 8 weeks. So what is he going to bring to the table at this point for this team? So go ahead and, maybe go back to Kansas City and, somebody that you're more familiar with, you get opportunity to play. And, that's it. That's just the business of it.
Mookie, I know you were at the post-game press conference with Sean McDermott, and you said something a little second ago, and you talked about Cole Bishop and your young guys. And McDermott made it a point to say, hey, I know that you guys all think I don't play rookies. And he brought up, Keon Coleman, and he brought up, Ray Davis and some of the others. Obviously Cole Bishop played in the Houston game and gave up the big touchdown over the top. But do you see this as this group of rookies is a good group, or is this more along the lines of, man, he's in a rock and a hard place and he has to do this? Do you see I guess the question I'm asking is, do you see a fundamental change in McDermott, or is this more along the lines of he has no other options?
I think it's kind of both. I mean, when you look at what they drafted, these guys are what, 5th-year seniors.
Right.
They're not your average typical age of rookie. Not all of them, but these are guys that if they weren't playing for you right away, they definitely going to play for you next year. So why stunt their growth now? If they out there playing now, just let's go with it. These guys are under contract. Mike Edwards is only here for 1 year. So are we going to bring Mike Edwards back next year? Right. So do we stop Cole Bishop's process, these last remaining 8 games going into the playoffs, to get Mike Edwards going? So it's like a lot of work that they put in with these guys. And now we got to stop their development. We got to stunt their growth because we got, a veteran guy. He's a veteran guy, but he doesn't have any continuity. The trust isn't there, like you mentioned, Jerry O. And, you best just to move on. I mean, he wasn't playing, so he was inactive.
Right.
So
Exactly. That was surprising to me.
He was inactive. So that answer your question there. And then, again, do they bring Micah Hyde back? And that's another thing, of course.
Right. So the question I have about that, and Adam asked this question, Mookie, do you think they bring back Micah Hyde? And this is obviously where it would all potentially lead. Micah Hyde is the carrot that's been dangling out there since before preseason even began. They never at any point were like, hey, he's not on the team, he's retired, he's gone. Like literally he's not on the roster right now, like the way that they worded all that stuff. But doesn't Micah potentially do the same thing? Doesn't he stunt the growth of DeMar Hamlin and Cole Bishop if they bring him back and they insert him into the lineup? Or do you see him coming back to be more of a depth player? Micah, that is.
Absolutely not. Let's not forget that Micah Hyde was coaching all last year. You know what I mean? So he's another, the year before that when his injury, but that's a guy that they trust, the guys respect, and he groomed those guys. You're not going to bring him in. He's just going to be a full-fledged starter, but he's definitely a quality depth piece in the passing situation. I would rather have Micah Hyde out there than any of those guys.
And I think, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mookie, go ahead.
And then, Micah, he get that itch. He's been home. He's been with the family now. They have to worry about the rigors of training camp. He's just sitting back, relaxing, and enjoying his family. But, we all know Micah, that itch is coming. And soon as the Bills get that X next to their name, Micah Hyde will appear. I asked him during the softball event, like, hey, man, is this it? You coming back? And he's like, I'll see you soon. He didn't say it was goodbye. He said, I'll see you soon. So soon to me is like after the bye week. You'll start hearing that. But I may ask tomorrow.
It's funny that couch is comfortable, Mookie. That lazy boy is really comfortable. That cold drink that's sitting on that table next to your chair is really refreshing. So you're not coming back to just hang out on the sidelines and be inspiration. If he's coming back to play a role. And I think that I think you're 100% correct that bye week is when we might start really hearing those rumblings. But I would appreciate it if you did ask him tomorrow about that. And I'm sure he'll give you the Sean McDermott coach speak, but I'm sure, maybe you'll get something out of him.
Does this put the bill, like, does this put Cam Lewis, because he's somewhat of a swing safety between nickel and whatever, they don't really have a strong and a free, but does he provide them, provide them the opportunity to let Mike Edwards go? Because to me, that's an important depth piece. I mean, who else, is there anybody else on the roster that could potentially play if hypothetically Rapp has another concussion and then DeMar has to miss a game? Now you're down to Cole Bishop. That's all you got.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep in mind, I mean, Cam Lewis is a guy that they developed to play all positions.
Yeah.
Nickel, outside. The Minnesota Viking game was his first time ever playing safety in his life. I thought he played a good game other than the last play of the game. They put him in that situation. But here's a
where
guy
everybody knew where the ball was going. I was in the stands going, it's going to Justin Jefferson. That's where the ball's going.
Yeah, you don't put him in that situation because the laws of physics have it, and when you're 6'2", going up against somebody that's 5'9", I don't know who's going to win that battle. He shouldn't have been one-on-one with Justin Jefferson in that situation in his first time ever playing safety.
Right, and I also think, too, I think it was pretty telling when the franchise made sure they re-signed Cam Lewis early. I was up there in Buffalo when his agent was on the sideline. He was up there to start, working on the negotiations. And the fact that they re-signed him early just kind of, to me anyway, shows just the value that the organization has of Cam Lewis. Especially, it's not only just his flexibility in the defensive secondary. I mean, he's a hell of a special teams player as well now. I mean, he made a big play this week. I mean, he's valuable to this team.
Very valuable. Very valuable. It's a guy that they grown. He's been on the team undrafted for about 5 years, right?
Right. Mookie, I got to ask you this, and it seems to me, and I want to kind of gravitate into run defense right now because eventually we're going to get to the question of the day, which is Jordan Phillips. But before we get to that, this defensive line took a lot of heat this weekend for how they played. A ton of chunk plays by Miami. Now let's face facts. Their two running backs, A-Chain and Mozart, are some of the best in the league. I mean, these guys are very, very good backs, big time explosive backs. But when you look at this defense, and we want to put so much emphasis on the defensive line, I heard Dan Orlovsky say this today when he was on One Bills Drive. He said that what teams are doing is actually taking advantage of Johnson, and they're running at Johnson. And I thought it was interesting because he is such a great, run player out of the secondary. But, is this a situation where maybe he's still not quite back from the arm injury? Or, again, you talked about physics earlier, and I'm a big, big proponent of that, man. Sometimes it just, you take him and bring him down as a 4-3 linebacker. It just, I don't care how well he plays. It just doesn't always work, right? So what are you hearing about him? A little bit out of you about this run defense and what you think about it, and then we'll eventually morph to that Phillips piece.
Well, if you're going to have Teron Johnson out there in that situation, see, like when you go back to not last year, the year before when Cincinnati played, and they made a point of emphasis to go right after Teron Johnson. Mm-hmm. And the only thing they did was use the tight end on his side, and the tight end went upstairs to the middle linebacker, and they pulled a 300-pound lineman at Teron Johnson. He is not going to win that battle at all. He is not, and that's what teams do.
Physics again.
Yeah, the law of physics. It is what it is. Like he's going to have to get off that tackle. By the time he get off that tackle, the run is gone. So that's something that the Bills going to have to adjust to, or you're going to have to get bigger guys up front that's going to be space eaters like a Jordan Phillips. And, we're going to have to, have a lot of gap integrity. Guys are going to be able to hold a gap, but you're going to have to send some linebackers too. They can't be, sit back, waiting, playing passive aggressive defense if that's going to happen.
And I'm surprised they don't have defensive tackles that are more along the lines of, a Ted Washington type, big, 340, 350 type guys, considering it's not just Teron Johnson and the fact that they want to sit in a nickel. Bernard's not big either. Williams isn't big either. Matt Milano is not big either. So you know, you look at Miami, a lot of single blocks up front, getting their uncovered linemen up to the second level fast just to get a body on a body because they know they don't have to necessarily, you know, shut a guy down or give him a knockout blow. But you get a hand or two on these guys that are a little bit light, they're not going to make arm tackles. And, you know, obviously Miami had a lot of success. So that leads us to the Jordan Phillips thing. Obviously, long in the tooth, long career, very productive career. Does he have enough left in the tank to play that kind of space eating one technique where you can grab a guard, grab a center, and let your linebackers make plays?
I believe so. His deal is just being healthy. You know, it's just being healthy. That's his only issue. 6'5", 340 pound, got a hell of a motor. You know, so that is definitely is needed. You look at Daquan Jones. Daquan Jones is that big. You know, when you look at a D tackle, Ed Oliver isn't that big, right? So, like you mentioned, the days of the Ted Washingtons, Marcel Darius, you know, stuff like that. Guys that you know that's going to take two offensive linemen, that's going to occupy two offensive linemen. Now everybody else is one-on-one. You know, we need a person like that. If you're going to, you know, try to go after Taron Johnson, you're going to have at least one of those guys up front that's going to demand a double team. So good move, good pickup by the Bills doing that. They didn't have to give up anything. You know, maybe I know everybody thought maybe a Jeffrey Simmons or a Sebastian Day or whatever the case, because, you know, no Smoot, Carter, they both on IR. So yeah, you figure that was a good move by the Bills. I thought they was going to bring Tre'Davious back for a seventh. Just bring the whole entire band back, right?
Is it official that Jordan Phillips has? I know that he put it out on his Instagram that already been through the. Yeah, I guess the question is: has it been made official yet?
Hasn't been made official, but I'm quite sure when he got. I'm quite sure when he got released. The phone calls and all that stuff. The phone calls between probably his agent and Brandon Beane was had before he got released.
Right.
So soon when he got released, you heard what he put up, running back.
Yep.
You know,
right.
He did the same thing at Arizona. You know what I mean? So I mean, he really know where home is. It's just that sometimes, hey, the business of the game, you gotta go get in where he fit in. If he stayed healthy, he would have. I think the Bills should have signed him when he first got here. And, you know, maybe the Bills might have a bowl by now, but, you know, they should have never let him leave to Arizona. You know what I mean? They should have kept him, you know, when he had the 9.5 sacks as a D tackle, leading team in sacks.
Well, what I will say is he fits right in because he has a wrist injury. So obviously he fits right in with the other 16 people that have wrist issues. I'm telling you, man, every year there's a nouveau injury, and I guess the wrist injuries this year is the nouveau injury. What are you hearing about Keon Coleman? Obviously lots of up in the air with him, you know, further evaluation, some pictures of him walking around with a soft cast on. What are you hearing about Keon?
Yeah, I was with him last night, you know, so he say, you know, he may give it a go. He didn't really give me too much on it. He said he was all right though. You know, he kept it in his pocket. You know what I mean? He kept it in his pocket. So so we'll see. Game time decision, you know, just coming from, you know, his mouth. He said he's gonna be all right. I don't know if all right meaning I'm gonna play this week or all right meaning I'm gonna sit out till the bye week. I'm not sure. You know, we don't know the real severity of it. But I'll definitely, you know,
an NFL player could have their right leg ripped off, and on Monday they'd be like, "I'll be all right for this weekend."
Well, did he say anything like soft tissue, bone break? What did he give you any indication what it might be?
I didn't get in depth with it. I just asked him, "What's good with you? You all right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm all right. I'll be ready to roll." But yeah, he kept it definitely in his pocket. You know,
gotcha. With that, Nathan asked a question: if you think that they'll bring up Deon Cain from the practice squad, depending on Keon's injuries, also with the realization that, you know, that Amari Cooper's still dealing with some struggle with a wrist as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, how about KJ Hamler?
Yeah,
he's on the team too. You know what I mean? Like, how about that guy? You know, let's bring him up and figure things out. Like they brought the one kid, what Jalen something. They brought him up, number 89. He was out there.
89, Steve Tasker.
Yeah, 89. Like, you know, we gotta stop disrespecting the legends of the game, man, with these numbers.
I'm literally in the stands going, Steve Tasker's on the field. Who is that guy?
Like, who is that guy?
We got
like,
OJ out there. We got Steve Tasker out
don't
there.
tell me you retired enough jerseys that you got to bring them out of the Raptors to put it on a practice squad guy. You know, that's
And am I correct? Am I correct? Am I correct in saying Shorter's still around too?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Justin
Shorters
Shorter.
and Shavers.
Right.
Yeah, they're all in the practice squad, right? Yeah.
On the practice squad. So receiver, we're kind of good in that scenario. Can Curtis Samuel get the rock? Yeah.
Can you speak to that? I talked to you on the golf course at the Poncho's Army Golf Tournament, I think in June, and you were the one that told me Matt Collins is making this team and he's going to be a big part of this offense because Josh Allen and him are tight. Like, you were the first person to kind of give me that information. What is the story with why they cannot get Curtis Samuel, who is, I'm not going to use the word elite, but he is a made NFL wide receiver in this league, and the Bills just can't seem to figure out a way to get him the football. What is going on there?
I don't know. I think I guess they try to make his role as a gadget person, but they're not running too many gadget plays. So only thing they give him is bubbles and slants like he in college or something. Here's a guy that's, can give you that 4.3, 4.4 speed. He can blow the top off of defenses.
Yes.
They're just not installing the right plays for him. I figured that when Khalil Shakur went down that he would fit into that role. That wasn't even the case neither. Joe Brady coached him in Carolina, so you brought him in here. You're paying him $8-9 million a year. You got to find a way to get him the ball because that's a weapon that's not being utilized.
Well, again, I listened to Orlovsky today on One Bills Drive. I was talking about it earlier with when they were talking about Taron Johnson. He also talked about Curtis Samuel pretty extensively, and his reasoning is this: he said that Curtis Samuel is not a route running wide receiver to get open. He's not going to run. He's not a guy that goes out and runs a ton of routes to get open. He is that guy that you throw the bubble to, you hand the fly sweep off to, you get him in space and then let him use his 4.3 speed. And so to kind of go along with what you said, Mookie, they've tried it a lot earlier in the year. Now, obviously he's gotten hurt, but they have been able to get those, and you call them gadget plays, call them quick hitters, whatever you want. They haven't been able to dial those up for him. And I don't know if he necessarily is a dude that's going to really go out there and be precise and be a route tree guy. He's a guy you got to get the ball in space, let him go make plays. And that was his determination of it.
Because Dan Orlovsky works for ESPN, he was a former backup quarterback. I'm not buying that shit.
I'm just relaying the message, Mookie.
He ran the routes in Washington.
Well, I was just going to say, even if he's not, go ahead.
He wasn't a bubble with slant guy in Washington. You tell me he can't run a mesh concept? He can't come across and get the ball matched up with a line.
And I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. And I agree. Like, you would think he could do that. Why aren't we seeing it?
Well, Brian Bauer says,
is Matt Collins, can he run the complete route tree?
No.
Who, Mac? I don't disparage Mac. Everybody's on Mac.
I'm not on Mac. I'm not knocking him, but it is what it is with him too. Like, here it is, a guy that was he I mean,
you could say Matt Collins has had more success in
yes.
What, 9 games?
Yes.
What are we, 7-2?
Mm-hmm.
He's had more success in 9 games in Buffalo than he's had his entire career.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Brian Bauer's getting back to Curtis Samuel. Brian Bauer says he has been hurt, which is true. But to the route tree point, you're telling me that they can't just put him out there, and this goes with your point, Mookie. Put him out on the outside and say, run that way really fast, just to pull the safety in a corner with you. Like, you can't have him do that, right?
There's so many ways you can do that. They got to do better with that. That's just BS. Like, they got to do better with that. That dude,
they do.
That dude can play football. You know what I mean? Y'all don't even have him in the backfield. You know, like, why don't you go 4 wide with him in the backfield and then use him as a receiver out of the backfield, isolating one-on-one with a linebacker? So you can't sit up here and tell me that. Like, I coach football too. So you can't. They got to get him more utilized in that offense. Giving him just bubbles and slants is too predictable, and teams know when they're in that formation, he's in the slot, He's getting to stand up. We live in an analytical world, so that's not going to work. They have to do other things with him, and they're just not doing it. And yeah, he is injured, but just go watch Carolina highlight tape and Washington highlight tape. The guy would have 50 catches, 50, 60 catches. So Brady got to do something to get him more involved. I understand everybody eats, but like Matt Perino said, he's not eating.
He's not eating.
But if he's a 4-3 guy, why is he not running go balls and running posts?
That's what I just said. That's what I just said. Put him out there and say, run that way really fast.
I mean, we constantly say we have nobody take the top off of it. If he's a 4-3 guy and can do it, then why aren't we doing it with him?
Right. Absolutely right.
Yeah, that's
literally. I didn't talk to Brady yesterday. I only talked to Babbage and McDermott. I'll let Brady live yesterday. Next week.
Talking with MUKI HAWKINS, Buffalo Bills beat reporter. MUKI, it's so good to have you on the show. Before we get into our last question with you, why don't you tell everybody where they can find your work, where they can find your content, and how they can find you on Twitter and socials and all that good stuff.
Well, you can always find me on Power 96.5 FM radio right here in Buffalo. I do late night sports Wednesdays from 10 to 11, and then Sundays 6 to 7, a little post game action. You can catch me on the Fan Base Network, all day, every day there, doing the Saturday night tailgate, and on Thursdays with Justice the General. And you always can catch me at Waffle Sports on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, yada, yada, yada.
So good. Justice is one of my main dudes. There was a lot of speculation, and we've been talking around it and kind of to it as far as defensive line, wide receiver injuries, stuff like that, that the Bills, there was a lot of expectation, speculation, even amongst some of the beat guys and girls, that the Bills were going to make a move, and they didn't. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't try. But let's just say for a moment that they didn't make it. They didn't extend all resources necessarily to make a move. Do you feel like Smoot being out, obviously, with that situation? Do you feel like they're somewhat comfortable with where they are with the guys they have? Bringing up Eli Anku, what they've got in Solomon, Vaughn being back. Do you think they're in a position where it's like we could make a move, but we don't have to? Like, what is your feel of Brandon Beane and Sean kind of like heading into the trade deadline, and they ended up not making it?
Yeah, I think that's what it really is. I mean, because it's not like they're out for the season. Being out for the season is totally two different things. Smoot is on IR, so he's out for 4 weeks until we see the check on that. Dwayne Carter is out.
That's right.
So those guys will be back at some point. So you really don't have to go and break the bank, on bringing another guy in and risking and trying to give up a third or fourth at this point for somebody that's going to be in a rotational situations. And now you got Jordan Phillips, basically got him for free, so you add that to a mix, a guy who's familiar with this system, familiar with the area, understands the locker room, understand what this organization is looking for out of their guys. And, that's just the trust factor, with the Bills brass.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, MUKI, and I did you think maybe they didn't feel the complete urge to go and try to make a move at defensive tackle because, the last 2 weeks I felt Anku showed up. I know they brought him
showed up.
Yeah, he showed up. And maybe now with him emerging, they didn't feel the need because they felt they had a guy already on the roster that they could rely on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they got the other guy on the practice squad too, Zion.
And Kingsley Jonathan, who has done good things in this defense, right?
Mm-hmm. And then, again, Dwayne Carter was having a sensational rookie season until he got hurt. So, they're not just going to just throw that away and press the panic button, when they got, available guys that could fit the mold and hold things down for 4 or 5 games if need be. A guy like Jordan Phillips for the next 4 or 5 games, I'll take that. You mean to tell me that we got Jordan Phillips as a backup defensive tackle for 4 or 5 games until Carter and Smoot gets healthy? I'll take that. I'll definitely take
there's people on the there. Okay, JW. People are like, "Oh, he signed," and I'm like, "It's not on Twitter yet. If it ain't Twitter official, it's not."
Well, you would have to think you could. You get waived injured. He's got past physical before they sign him. I mean,
sure.
We got released,
right? But he got released with an injury settlement, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has played his best football as a Buffalo Bill. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to come in and be some dynamic player, but he's a body, right? And they need a body right now. And he's a guy that they're going to get relatively inexpensively. And when Dwayne Carter comes back and like the defensive line fills out again, you can make him inactive, right?
But let me also say this, and I think MUKI can probably back me on this. It's a lot easier to play when you're on a squad that's 7-2 that's got it's in contention, as opposed to that zoo that's going on in Dallas right now. I mean, that changes things.
Listen, if I know better, if I'm a gambling man, I'm quite sure Jordan Phillips told his agent to get him out. Get Brandon Beane on the phone right now. Get me back home.
Get Brandon
Last week, this was probably already done. Look, he couldn't. So when he got released, he said running back.
Yeah. And that's actually the speculation piece that we're missing, as well as he could have just done that under his own volition. There may not have been a call made, right? That's just him putting it out there, like into the ether, that I want to be back in Buffalo. Let's do this again.
Right.
Come get me. You need help. Here I am. Come get me. So
Jordan Phillips is a no nonsense kind of guy.
Right.
Awesome. It'll be great.
He was like, "Get me the hell out of here."
It'll be great to see the big puffy jacket back in practice, which is funny to me that the coaches let him do that.
No, we used to wear them too, man. We didn't we didn't have it indoor. We wore everything we had.
That's amazing. MUKI, thank you so much for your time filling in. I know it's short notice. I texted you today, so more than appreciative of you giving some of your time today to help us make this happen, and the knowledge. You always bring all the insight and all the knowledge, and you've got
I got time, man. You ain't got to kick me out. You know what I mean?
Well, we try to keep them like under 35 for algorithm purposes. Believe me, we could talk probably for another hour and a half with you. We have a rhythm and a kind of a what's the word, Jerry? We have a format that we're trying to keep.
Yes.
The only show that typically goes long is the post-game show, and that usually runs about 45, 48 versus what we used to do back in the day, the hour and 20-minute shows and stuff like that. So, it's figured out. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been tuned into On the Beat on the Overreaction Sports Network, a great show where we bring you a different Bills beat report every week, just like MUKI Hawkins, who spent some great time with us today. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you joining us. Again, like, subscribe. Tomorrow, the Hump Day Hotline with me and Jay Spence the King. Thursday, your first preview of the Bills at the Indianapolis Colts with that guy, Jerry Ostrowski, on the Big O Show. He'll bring you his keys to the game and run through some of the numbers with you. But for me, for John, for Jerry, for MUKI, go Bills.
Hey, Mook, good luck in the playoffs, and good luck in the All-Star games. And then go ahead. I'm sorry.
Appreciate you, man. We're gonna put some work in and, get the job done. Maybe I could, get Brady a few plays.
Much love. Go Bills.
Give me a go Bills, Mook. Go Bills.